All right, welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, where we have an extremely busy day with free agency. As we just went to break, we have some breaking news that Kirk Cousins has signed a 4-year contract with the Falcons. It sounds like we don't have an exact price range yet, but a big-time move for the Falcons to bring in their guy in Cousins. This has been a team that has taken some steps in the right direction over the past couple seasons. I love the hire of Raheem Morris as their next head coach. We saw their defense make some strides last year, and they still have lots of options offensively in terms of weapons, and now they go and ideally get their franchise guy. Cousins is now 35 years old. He's coming off of a torn Achilles injury, so there are some risks involved here, but I do think that this is going to be a very nice signing. You also have to keep in mind that with the running backs that Atlanta has, they're going to be able to lean on the run game and the defense a little bit more, and they really just needed more of a steadying presence in the locker room for them after coming off of a season with Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. It was a very rough stretch. They were losing games quite exactly because of their level of quarterback play. So I think this is a big time deal. Interesting what the Vikings are going to do from here. For a while, it seemed like that was going to be a reunion between the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, but over the course of the past week, Kevin O'Connell hinted at the fact that this may be headed in separate directions, and we get the answer to that today. I think this is a Falcons team that, as we were just talking about with the Buccaneers in the last segment, them bringing in Baker Mayfield for another 3 seasons, really. The NFC South is very much there for the taking, and the Falcons were able to win, 7-8 games last year, despite having, I think, personally, the worst plan at quarterback headed into the season. So they definitely could be closer to real contention. Is tough because they still are a bit of a ways away, but I think that they are taking steps in the right direction. Absolutely. Again, 7-10 last year with that level of quarterback play. Could definitely see them take the next step. We have some news on the running back front, where this is obviously a pretty monumental offseason in terms of some of the free agent running backs, where there is so much talent available, and it's been a conversation over the course of the past 2 off seasons about how much will they make. Well, we have some moves already. We have DeAndre Swift signing to the Bears. This was a 3-year deal worth $24.5 million. We had the Titans signing Tony Pollard to a 3-year deal worth just under that, $24 million. And we have the Packers signing Josh Jacobs. Don't know if we have the contract details on that just yet. I'll start off by saying I'm pretty surprised that DeAndre Swift got what he did from the Bears, just over $8 million per year. Swift is a nice player, but I also feel like in this very crucial offseason for GM Ryan Poles and head coach Matt Eberflus, that this isn't necessarily a huge needle pusher move, and the fact that he got more than Tony Pollard did, I don't feel great about that necessarily. Now, I know Pollard comes with concerns as well. He had a down year. A lot of people are wondering whether or not he can be a true every down type of back, but I also feel like the upside is still probably there with Pollard more than it is for Swift. Now, for the Bears here, again, I think that it makes sense to some degree that you are trying to surround whoever your next quarterback is going to be, presumably Caleb Williams, but still could be a little bit up in the air, and wanting to add a veteran running back to that group is understandable. I just also don't know if DeAndre Swift would have been my first pick for that. Now, we will see how the rest of this plays out. Gotta say, and again, I don't know if we have an exact price just yet on Josh Jacobs, but I do really like the move of the Packers going to get Josh Jacobs, where they've had a good run game in the past with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon as well. A.J. Dillon is a free agent. Not sure exactly what the situation is with Aaron Jones because he is under contract for another year, but there was also talk that if they couldn't work out some sort of a longer-term deal, that they would potentially look into releasing him. I mean, if things stand as they currently are, and they have a two-headed monster between Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones, that would be unbelievable, I think, to watch. And the Packers are a team that is rapidly ascending. We saw that down the stretch of last year. And I think that this could be a really great move for them long term. Again, going to have to see how they handle the Aaron Jones situation, but definitely a nice move for the Packers there. They have also made a couple other moves, more so in the fact that they are losing a couple guys. They are expected to cut linebacker Devondre Campbell. Campbell has been an all-pro player for them in the course of the past few years. He's a nice player, but they did decide to part ways with him. It hasn't been official yet, but this is being rumored. And they also lost one of their defensive backs as well. The Jaguars had signed one of their defensive backs. As I'm sort of trying to scramble through here, Darnell Savage was let go in free agency this year. The Jaguars bring him back, as the Jaguars have been a little aggressive here to start off the free agency period. It was first with the deal of them bringing in Gabe Davis earlier today, and they bring in Savage as well. I guess moving on to the Jaguars in this situation here, the Gabe Davis move was interesting to me. I think Davis is a nice player, but he's a little bit one-dimensional in my eyes. He's a big-time, big play guy, and it was clear that the Bills were missing him during the playoffs last year. But they also have, dished out a good amount of money to receivers over the course of the past few seasons. Now, when you have a young quarterback on a rookie deal like they do in Trevor Lawrence, I definitely am never going to disagree with that idea, where it's not like Christian Kirk or Zay Jones or even Evan Ingram were seen to be tremendous additions to that Jags team a couple off seasons ago, but they've all panned out really nicely in helping Trevor Lawrence take some steps in the right direction. Now they bring in Gabe Davis again. What is he going to bring on a play-to-play basis? But things really soured between him and the Bills this past year to end the season. So he finds himself a new home with the Jags, who are hoping to take a step back in the right direction after missing the playoffs last year and really collapsing down the stretch of this one. One of my favorite moves of the day so far is the Raiders bringing in defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. Wilkins is an absolute beast. I have been on record saying I think that he is one of, if not the most impactful defender for the Dolphins the past couple seasons, and I would have liked them, from their front office perspective, to try and hold on to him. But he gets a monster deal, 4 years, $110 million. And this Raiders team that is going under new leadership with Antonio Pierce, we saw the way that all of the players rallied behind him last year. They add Wilkins to a defensive front that already has Max Crosby, so that is going to be quite the scary group for opposing quarterbacks in the next few years. I'm absolutely locked in figuring out how that is all going to play out. I think it's going to be, especially when you're the Raiders here, you are in the AFC West and you are playing Patrick Mahomes multiple times in a season. You're going to want to add up as much juice as you can on the defensive side of the ball in terms of guys who can disrupt the quarterback. That's what they currently have. They obviously still have questions at the quarterback position after releasing Jimmy Garoppolo earlier this season. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they find their way into drafting a quarterback in the upcoming draft, but we will have to see with all of that. A couple moves on the offensive line where we saw the Cowboys lose center Tyler Biadasz, who was a really nice starter for them last year. He reunites with former, not that they were on the same side of the ball, but with former defensive coordinator Dan Quinn in the Commanders in Washington, where they bring him in. I think another nice move for a Commanders team that is going to look to reestablish their quarterback position this offseason. You go get a leader on the offensive line, which is nice. And then the other big offensive line move that we will finish off this segment with is, as we get some more breaking news. So the offensive line move was Jonah Jackson of the Detroit Lions signing with the LA Rams. Nice move for the Rams to bring in another offensive lineman and continue to try and solidify their front line after it was re-signing Kevin Dotson the other day. But we did just get the breaking news here from Ian Rappaport that Saquon Barkley has signed a deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 years, $37.75 million for Barkley. He is likely, again, not knowing the Jacobs contract, the highest paid of the running back group for this offseason class, over $10 million. Was curious if that number was going to be broken, and the Eagles do. This makes a lot of sense in my eyes, where the Eagles are obviously a very run-heavy team, or at least when they made the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago, their run game was sort of their mainstay, and everything they got from Hurts as a passer was a bonus. This past season, it seemed like they were a lot more reliant on the pass game, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's the NFL world that we live in today. The fact that we saw Jalen Hurts not really quite be able to live up to the level of what we were hoping for. There was some weird stuff going on, especially down the stretch of the year. I mean, early in the year, him and A.J. Brown were getting into it. The two really started connecting and clicking, and then everything fell apart for them down the stretch of the season. But I do think that Barkley fits really nicely into the type of offense that the Eagles are going to try and run. A lot of turnover with the Eagles this offseason, getting 2 new coordinators on each side of the ball, so we will see how they respond to that. Kellen Moore is who they brought in from the Chargers this past season, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can reaffirm themselves as one of the top threats in the NFC. But that is all we have time for on this subject. We're going to be getting into some college basketball on the other side. If we have some other breaking news, may dive into that as well. But just under a week away from Selection Sunday, want to give the updates on the polls and what we are looking at going forward here. So stick with us and we will be right back.